Hello, good morning. Welcome to Wise Women Weekdays. We're here with Natalia this morning and
Hello.
Piers Corbyn. Piers Corbyn used to be advisor to Boris Johnson on weather-related, and he is incredibly qualified in astrophysics and weather-related topics. Ran his own. Are you still running it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. Weather Action, which
We're
is
breaking boundaries all the time. We can forecast Earth-facing coronal holes, and we've done some trial forecasts of earthquakes, as well as some very extreme weather that's going to happen later this month.
So who do you mainly advise?
Well, the Boris Johnson thing was just because he was at a political game with his enemies and wanted to learn about the answers and take our side as opposed to the other side on climate matters. What I advise mostly is people who buy forecasts, is farmers.
Okay.
They want to know what's going to happen in the spring, summer, autumn, and so on. And also commodity traders and energy traders.
Okay.
So it's crucially for them to know sometimes the weather or the date of melt of snow and ice in Norway affects energy price, instantly across the whole world even. So
has this been a passion of yours all your life?
Yeah.
How did you get to set up your weatheraction.com and why?
Well, when I was a child, I was always interested in science, and lived in the countryside, so got to understand weather and read about weather at school and so on, and believed that maybe you could use the sun to forecast weather because there were known connections, sort of, between solar activity, that's sunspots, and the weather. So I was interested in that, went to do physics in Imperial College, got a first class degree. Didn't do meteorology in the final year because, I was told by a professor, he said, Corbyn, if you want to go and work in the Met Office, you've got to sign up to the Ministry of Defence. Could you do that? I said, well, I could, but I don't know if they would let me.
That's a good response.
So I did theoretical physics instead. But I don't regret that at all. Theoretical physics is a fantastic subject. It's incredible stuff, incredible. But it's not for everybody. Anyway, so I did that, and then I became president of the Student Union, did some research into solid state physics, superconductivity and all that. Had a row where the people got chucked out, reinstated, and then went off doing 7 years of squatting, and then went back and did astrophysics in Queen Mary College and got an MSc in astrophysics. So I've got an MSc and an Associate of Royal College of Science and a first class degree in physics from Imperial College, an MSc in astrophysics, and I was elected a Fellow of the Royal Astronomical Society and a corporate member of the Royal Meteorological Society for setting up weather.
So it's fair to say that you have a really good knowledge of the subjects that you speak about.
No, I've spoken all over the world on these, it's physics to an extent, but mostly it's about weather risk, business-related things, quite deep science at times, and I've spoken in Colorado, USA. I've spoken in China, in Beijing. I've spoken in New York, in Paris, South Africa.
So your opinion is respected, and yet you seem quite a
Absolutely.
controversial character.
Well, that's because the powers that be don't want to hear what I've got to say, and that's especially true now, of course.
So it sounds like when you said 7 years squatting, you've been quite a rebel. But the media
that was 72 to 73 to 1980.
Okay, sounds good. So, but how does the rebel serve you at this moment in time? Like the media pinning that on you, and how does that serve what you are doing with the work that you do and communicating to the wider public?
Well, that's the question. Yes, I don't think it was the rebel serving me. I just think I do what I do. And I had a friend in Imperial who said, Piers, I take it you don't want to be a Fellow of the Royal Society then, do you? And I said, well, I haven't thought about that. He said, well, you were arguing with all these profs, you're not going to make it if that's what you want. I said, well, I wasn't thinking of making it or not. I'm just going to carry on, you know. So what I do is what I do to get the truth in science and politics.
Sure.
So could you give us an oversight of what you see
But
happening?
so that's the crucial thing. And how does what I do serve getting the truth? Well, I think you just have to accept that this will be what happens. The powers that be will attack you, and you have to have responses, which can be difficult.
Sure.
So can you give us an overview of what you see happening at the moment and what's coming in
Right.
the near future for
Well,
us?
for a lot of the public, of course, well, they do know something bad has happened. They do know we've had lockdowns. They do know we've had all these jabs, injections, and so on. And they've noticed that more and more people are getting ill. More people are limping around. The number of injured people or people who are partially disabled has gone up hugely. And the death rate has gone up by 13% in the United Kingdom. So there's a lot of things wrong. So what do I would say about the crucial things of what's happened in the last year is, well, of course, you know.
Is this climate? We're talking
No,
climate here?
I was going to
or
talk about the
generally?
kind of general
Okay.
campaigning movement. So most people have noticed demonstrations going on, opposition to this and that, and quite a proportion of the population don't pay much notice to them. But
Why do you think that is?
I think a lot of it's because it's not on the mainstream media.
well,
isn't it?
it's not on the mainstream media is one thing, and people just don't want to know because, you know, they don't want to think that, you know, the doctors told them something and it was wrong what the doctor said. But now a lot of doctors do know. I mean, for example, if you had a jab, it used to be you go into the hospital and they'd say, have you had your injection? And the doctor would then make you or encourage you to have it. But now they say good, because they know that the injections have certainly injured certain people. I mean, and this is what's happening in hospitals now, which is quite interesting. I mean, I think what to understand is in the last year, see, some of us were saying lots of things. I was arrested on the August the 16th, 2020, and I said that numbers of things, that 5G is a threat, I said, and that Bill Gates wants to vaccinate the world. And I was called a conspiracy theorist. But now we know that is true, that, you know, Bill Gates says he wants to vaccinate the world.
Sure.
So it is true. So this last year, though, a lot of things we warned about have been confirmed, and the public know, or a lot of the public know. And that's where we are. But this coming year now is going to be a year of advance, because more and more people really understand there's something wrong. They don't know quite what to do, and we're hoping to show them the way forward in what to do.
So that's your goal?
Yes,
Is
this year.
To
Unify all these struggles.
people, okay, great.
And we've set up this group called the United Front.
Okay,
The
so that's
United Front.
Because when I asked you
The
about
United
rebel,
Front.uk.
when I asked you about being a rebel,
Yeah.
because obviously we've got all these challenging narratives, you know, alarmist narratives going on, and my feeling. So I am talking about climate here, and because it's intimately connected with the idea of biosphere and the Earth, and us as humans at a critical point where we need to become conscious of our effect going forward on the planet, and in my mind, to harness the Earth's natural resources in a positive way, in a non-harming way for ourselves and the Earth, and move forward.
I agree with that completely.
Yes, because I think that I think your argument is being hijacked by media and you being called a rebel. But I looked at your website and can I just quote something from your website, which
is weatheraction.com.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you say, Weather Action supports true green policies to defend biodiversity and wildlife and reduce chemical and particulate pollution.
That's right.
So that is what you represent, and yet what I see when I've looked at videos about you is a divisive narrative, as if you're trying to split like public view, and I don't think that's correct.
No.
I think that
the public are misled away from that to something they think is that, but it's something else. That's what's happening.
absolutely, and I think this is the danger. There's a big danger of the powers that be splitting people's opinions, because there's a lot of what's the word, people are feeling unempowered. They're in a stasis. There's a static state. They are stationary. They don't know how to help themselves. They don't know what to believe, how to move forward. And I think that these narratives about us and our world need to come all together. And you've just said that as well. So that's what I'm interested in, is the truth behind what you're doing, not the hype.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's very nice. I agree with that. Okay, all right. I think this coming year there's going to be 4 big issues which are going to be active on. A lot of people are going to be active on, but they need to be drawn together. First of all is the zoning and ultra low emission zones, where they're charging us loads of money in London just to drive old cars, and I've run up a charge of £51,000 and.
Jesus.
Didn't pay it. Well,
whoa!
the car got seized. Sorry, it was £61,000. The car got seized, and then I bought the car back from an auction, and it's outside.
That's hilarious.
For £850, which is 97% reduction. But so there's resistance to this, and we say drive at will, do not pay, take down the cameras, and you will see this on a big banner here. Actually, can I hold this up? Anyway, this is the first thing I'm mentioning, that zoning and ULEZ, there you are. Drive at will, do not pay, take down the cameras. And 70% of cameras now for ULEZ have been taken down in London, and that is huge. People are just doing it. Grannies are doing it. Grannies are climbing up ladders doing it.
City quite a lot of money.
Absolutely. Anyway, let's list the 4 things. So, zoning and ultra low emission zone is one thing. And there's a lot of people really active on that, and they're quite new people. They haven't done much before, but meet them. They're quite sort of, they sort of just stopped watching television and started doing something.
Good action.
It's very good. Next one is the Palestine issue.
Yes.
And of course, the state of Israel is crucial to that because of the vast numbers of people being killed in Gaza. But Israel is also a crucial part of the World Economic Forum, which is a body which always hides itself, but is really fundamental to what's going on in the world. The third thing happening now is farmers. Farmers around the world are rising up against all the impositions of the climate con. Driving around, blocking roads and so on in France, in Belgium, in Holland and so on. And that will start happening here. There was a meeting of 1,200 farmers in Welshpool last weekend.
I noticed it's just hit the mainstream media
exactly.
interviewing British farmers.
Now, there's going to be tricks to head them off. We know that. And the fourth thing of importance is the World Health Organization and Disease X. So the World Health Organization is being brought in with superpowers to rule every country in the world when they so decide to do so. And our government has given away our sovereignty. Now, that'll be broken by people disobeying, like we're breaking ULEZ by disobeying, but that's their plan. And Disease X, which was announced by Bill Gates some years ago, there'll be a Disease X we don't know about. So they say they're preparing a jab to deal with an unknown disease. Now look, this is nonsense. What I understand is that there won't be any, the unknown disease will be something they created anyway, an artificial virus, if you like. I don't think viruses exist in the normal sense anyway, but they'll create something and they'll use 5G to make people ill, and then they'll say they're ill because of disease X, and then the WHO will say, right, we've got to lock down you, we've got to lock you up, we've got to jab you, and so on. And that will result on serious damage, illness, and death of many people.
So just kind of
but behind all these, a lot of them, you see, the climate con comes behind ULEZ, the farmers con the ULEZ and the farmers are both driven and justified by the authorities by the climate com. The World Health Organization is a system of control, and the Palestine thing is a war thing, which there's always wars around to tell you what to do.
Well, as soon as you
to frighten
displace
people.
well, when
Of
you
course, and to
displace
frighten people. As George Orwell said, there's always going to be a war out there. A war between people, yes, they'll be dying, but it's actually a war against you.
yeah, well,
Because it
the
will
other
control
totally.
you. You've got
because-
to obey your masters in case they come against you see.
Well,
So-
I mean, the biggest thing to threaten somebody is war, because all you can do is just concentrate on survival.
and
so,
obeying your government.
Yes.
Like Netanyahu,
so,
he should be
yes.
in prison for theft, massive theft of the Israeli economy. But
Sure,
he's
well-
busy, you know.
Well, I heard now they're also talking about reintroducing conscription in this country
They are.
to boost our military, because we don't have enough military, and also that
Yeah.
the ex-head of the military said that they need to relax the rules now and let people have things like beards that they didn't have before,
Oh.
which gives a whole
God.
other perspective to it as well.
Such freedom now, isn't it?
yeah.
Have
So-
a beard in the army.
So this, all that you've said, all that you've cited, to me is talking about authorities trying to control humans.
It is, yeah.
that right?
All
So-
of those things, absolutely.
And so what is
Absolutely.
at stake here is the sovereignty and the individual freedoms of people. I'd just like to go back, because I wholly agree with that and support that. I also support positive narratives to go forward. I think if we focus, what we focus on and give energy to grows. And if we focus on talks of peace, of giving people power, of giving people education, these are the things that actually will grow. If enough people focus on that, then it will grow, because we are energy human beings. We
I
are
agree
full
with
of energy. But just to come back to the idea of cars at this moment, planes, and the CO2 issue, pollution, because I believe
Well, CO2
in this
and
whole,
pollution are two different things.
well, okay, I'm talking about stuff coming out of cars then, because
Okay.
when you know, in the old films, you used to see people commit suicide by literally getting in their car in a wood and stuffing the exhaust, a tube into the exhaust and through their window, and they would die.
Well, you can still do that.
Okay, thank you.
It's carbon monoxide. It comes
Exactly.
from every
That's
end.
a public information announcement. Bloody hell.
But what I'm talking about here is
I don't advise it.
pollution,
Yeah.
and the government and huge business lobbyists controlling fossil fuels that are actually polluting, and putting blocks on alternative good energy things, let's say even hydrogen. I wonder, so this is quite a lovely memory I have. I used to watch Tomorrow's World in the 70s. Do you remember? It was a
I do remember
science
Tomorrow's World, yeah.
and a
We
technology
used to talk about it at school all the time. Yeah,
program.
Did you see Tomorrow's World last night?
And I think I had
They
a
never
slight
ask questions about
crush
that now,
on
do they?
Raymond Baxter.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, so he introduced at one point a car that was driven on hydrogen,
Okay.
and it was a prototype.
Okay.
And this is what this whole program was about. And at the end, he very suavely came on and he said, of course, nobody will get to see this, because the patent will be bought up by big business. There's too much invested in crude oil. That's what he said. Now, this to me is just an example of big business and governments blocking. The government right now is blocking solar farms or hydro turbines, all this, and hydrogen. One thing I believe that it should be illegal to have patents now by businesses
Interesting idea.
that actually lead to damage of the earth. That is to connect the dots. I think this is what we need to be doing all the time here, is connecting the dots. And so just the idea of if we can change the energy consumption to cleaner energy, that's what I think is
Well, you better
a
say what you mean by
positive-
cleaner energy.
Well, that's what I said. Solar. We are an island. This is Britain. We are an island surrounded by sea and the possibility of hydro turbines. There's two women who designed a train that is running at night at the moment on hydrogen, and in this country. And the other thing, is that basically the government, I've talked to young people who are wanting to be engineers, and I said, what about the technology for this? And they say, there's not, the government are not interested, there's no grants, and actually they actively are blocking things. They're blocking
They've
things
been doing this for years, though.
Absolutely,
I mean, in
but
Japan, they've already invented
this
these
is-
cars, and the people disappear or they're bought out.
Well, this is what is happening. So I think people need to know that there are these things out there, the possibilities, but we need to get governments to serve people, not the globalists or the big businesses. So there's a kind of push and pull here, isn't there?
Yeah.
And as you mentioned as well in one of your videos, education, school education. So starting
It's been
early.
destroyed.
Yes.
Yes, but all this has been taken over for a very, very long time. And we're going back hundreds of years where all this started off.
I wouldn't agree with that. Because
Absolutely.
we're not, well,
We're going to debate here.
because
Well,
we
actually,
have
we
an
need to-
energy
we need
issue.
to let
Yeah,
Piers
anyway,
talk.
yeah,
I
absolutely.
think we need to let Piers talk.
Yeah.
I don't mind.
You're interested.
I was, yeah.
So let's.
All right, come
Yes,
back to that.
you go,
So,
come
a lot of
back.
things you said, and of course, I think the other side, they confuse messages,
Yes.
and they know you believe certain things, so they're going to say things that look like something you want.
Mhm.
So be careful. But some
Sure.
of what you do want is completely valid, of course. First thing though, about solar power.
Mhm.
Right? Well, actually, it costs a lot more to produce solar power than it does to burn oil. By solar power, I mean those things. And the pollution caused by those solar things is very large, and you have to dispose of those solar panels. And I've seen pictures of dumps of them, and it's poisonous stuff.
Okay.
If you want to convert solar radiation into energy, the best way to do it is grow grass and burn the grass. That's much more efficient than covering the grass with solar panels.
Sure. Oh, I agree. Well, there's the brown sites and
Yeah.
things that are being made.
Well,
Yes.
just think about it. You can have a power station that can be clean because you can remove the dust, powered on wood and hay. It's all possible. But as I say, it's more efficient. The cost of solar electricity is 3 times that from generating it by a diesel thing. And indeed, the same applies for wind turbines. They are very expensive, both to construct, very difficult to dispose of. They don't tell you about the indisposability of fiberglass. There's masses of fiberglass dumped in forests.
Right.
You can't destroy it. It's just really a big nuisance.
So what
The
would
cost
you
of
say-
electricity from a wind turbine is 3 times that from oil. Now, the wind turbine is there not really to produce anything. It's like the Great Wall of China. It's there to tell you that they're in charge. That's what it's about. It's ideological.
What would you say moving forward would be the best clean energy as a future resource?
Okay, well, depends what you mean by clean and where it's clean or not. Because you see, the wind power, when it turns off, they turn them on by diesel. Near those wind farms, there's diesel stations which they'll just turn on and sell diesel power. And that is this small particle diesel stuff. It's not even a big power station where, they do clean things a lot more. So that's one problem. Anyway, so going to hydropower, see you say hydrogen, okay. But
The hydro and then hydrogen.
Oh, there's hydro.
Yes,
Hydroelectric.
hydroelectricity, yeah, no, I agree hydroelectricity is a good idea. But it's only, there's a limit to where you need mountainous areas really. You can do it on a small scale, that's true. But, do the government try and stop it? Probably, because they like things they can control centrally, that's true. But in this country it's not a big deal. In Norway and Sweden it's a fantastic thing and it is very important, and the governments there don't stop it at all. In fact, they're probably run by these
Absolutely,
particular
they are.
energy
Yes,
companies.
totally.
And I can tell you, I know because I was involved in weather forecasting for these people, one of these operations that was forecasting demand suddenly got closed down because they were both in charge of the water and in charge of the assessment of how much water there was, and they were making up numbers to show they had vast resources and then fiddling with the stock exchange, making loads of money. It was corrupt anyway, and they got closed down.
Well, that's sad.
Yeah, well, okay, but this sort of thing happens. Anyway, that's hydropower, and I think hydropower is great in general terms. Hydrogen power, well, again, sounds great because obviously it's clean when you burn it, but you see, the energy for that had to come from somewhere. It's a coal-fired power station, a nuclear power station, or an oil-fired power station that's made electricity. So it's not actually less polluting if you're talking about whatever's produced. But of course, carbon dioxide itself is not a pollutant. It's the gas of life, and we want more of it. The smoke that comes out from burning, if it's in a big power station, it can be removed very effectively. They can remove things. So you can make clean power by cleaning the product of burning.
And using less, surely. I mean, our country, has again, going to the new housing, the government has not the will or the desire to support eco-housing. There are I've seen sort of programs of young
they talk
people
about it to impose some rules on you.
Exactly. So they block, at every stage, they block the potential of moving forward to a cleaner future.
Oh, I see, in different building things.
Just like not allowing them with councils and things like this. So to my mind, again, it's this.
Well, you've got to retrofit your house so it can't be sold.
versus-
That's what they're trying to do now.
Power versus people in every sense of like how to move forward with the truth and kind of like a cleaner potential for the whole, the climate, the earth as it is.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. And the system is corrupted by mega corporations, of course. It's true, the oil companies will always want to go around producing oil, but they also get involved in the game. They're also in charge of numbers of wind farms in order to give themselves a good image.
Sure,
right?
absolutely.
And they receive money.
That's greenwash, isn't it?
They receive money to build a wind farm to look good. And the Chinese government, I'll tell you, this is really interesting. We went there. I went there with a. I won't go into all the details, but we.
Of your social diary?
No, it was an academic institution. Went there to discuss pollution and how to depollute Beijing and all these big towns. And the reason why they wanted us there was because something from outside could stop the corruption in the bureaucracy there.
Right.
Where the government says do this, then the bureaucrats say it's done, and then nothing happens. It's still smoky, you know what I mean? So they wanted an external force to look at it. Now, this project fell through in a way, but it's sort of up in the air because of COVID, etc. But I asked them, I said, well, look, okay, are you talking about smoke or are you talking about carbon dioxide? They said, oh, smoke, Mr. Corbyn. Smoke is what's killing people. Carbon dioxide, we don't care a damn about that. We do not care a damn about carbon dioxide. They're only interested in talking green to sell it to stupid people in the West.
Sure.
So they'll make an electric vehicle which is going to kill children in Congo and so on.
Sure.
They'll make a wind farm. They'll do anything for the stupid West who are going to up their energy costs to be green, whereas China is laughing all the way to the bank. That is what's happening. But it was. These are top people in the government who said, they're perfectly clear to me, said, Mr. Corbyn, no, we don't care, we don't want you to talk about CO2, it's irrelevant, we want to get rid of this smoke. So anyway, that's kind of an aside on real things. There's one other energy thing worth mentioning, is tidal power, which has had some success, but again, it only works economically where there's a big tidal fetch, like in North Brittany and so on. It could work in the English Channel, which has got not the English Channel, the Bristol Channel, which has got a 40-foot tide. But the difficulty with that is masses of wildlife and so on get destroyed if the estuaries changed and so on. So there's been a lot of arguments about whether this ever should be a big scale thing in the Bristol Channel, but it could be a big source of power. It could be. But I myself would frankly prefer to see the birds happy and have an oil-fired power station, if given the choice. I don't know if that answers your questions on energy. Partly.
It partly does. I think that what I wanted to sort of talk to you about was just about the idea of moving forward with cleaner energy. You know, this idea of
my answer is that you clean it where the dirt comes from, and that is the pollution that comes out of a power station. It can be removed. You have an electric field across the chimney, and it removes the dust.
Okay.
It's an electric charge. There's many processes. Anything you do which you suddenly think is clean, actually, like electric vehicles, are astoundingly polluting.
Totally.
They're killing children.
Totally, and they,
and they're also very inefficient.
Totally.
I mean, you've got to charge the battery, discharge the battery, and so on. And when you charge a battery at maximum rate, something you should have learned at A-level physics, it loses half its power. If you discharge a battery at the biggest rate it can discharge, half its power goes into heating, half of it. And if you're charging it up at that rate, you can have a quarter, 25%. Now that is less efficient than a normal power station, which will produce energy at 40% efficiency.
Can we quickly touch on CO2? I mean, we're told that CO2 is a massive problem at the moment. From the research that I've done, we're actually quite lacking in CO2 at the moment. And it seems to me that the carbon that they're wanting to get rid of is actually us, because we're
completely.
Carbon.
It's you, yes. It's you.
It's
Yeah,
the human beings that are the carbon that's the problem.
Well, they are. But before we do the CO2, just to sort of the size of things. People have no clue about the size of things. Of all the living carbon in the world, I think about 60% of it is in trees, or plants. Then about 10% or even 20% is in bacteria, right? Then animals, all of animal life is just a few percent, and humans within that are a dot. And the human contribution to world carbon, living carbon, is 0.01%. So even if all humans are wiped out because the New World Order wants that, well, they'd have to stay there presumably. That would change the carbon content of the world by 0.01%.
Virtually nothing.
This is insane. It is insane what they're talking about.
That's what the insanity though gets mixed up with all different types of conversations.
Yes, all
and
different
it
types of
lumps
carbon.
together. I mean, to my mind, you said about things going
Talk about
on for a long
ozone,
time.
they talk about
but in a
climate
world,
change, they talk about
earthquakes,
earthquakes, they talk about everything.
So the Amazon, like the lungs of our planet being cut down, like systematically. To my mind, there's a guy called John Muir who was an environmentalist at the end of the 1890s. He set up Yosemite Park, and so he called himself an environmentalist, and he signed himself. He's actually Scottish and moved with his family out to California when he was young, but he used to sign himself off as his surname, John Muir, and then he would say Earth, Planet, Universe. Now that, and I agree with that, because that is, I think, how we need to think about this Earth. We are citizens of the Earth. We have an interconnection. If small farmers who are on subsistence are being paid by huge multinationals to keep cutting down the Amazon, what are we all doing about that? Because that is the breathing apparatus for our Earth. And that is something that we talk about, the internet but actually the connection we have with our Earth, the biosphere, and each other is just that. We are literally connected with each other, and we need to preserve or be environmentalists about the fact of what is being cut down by these huge multinationals that seriously affect the health of the planet and ultimately us. Because I believe, the planet will survive. We won't if we carry on the way we are, because we are literally poisoning and destroying the earth. So it's just, I wanted to sort of talk, to you, going back to what you'd said on your website about this really conservation or preservation of the beauty and the source of nature.
Okay.
Would you?
I agree with that. Yeah. I think we need to clarify some things about forests.
Yeah.
First of all, a mature forest is carbon neutral. Trees grow, they fall down, they rot, and the carbon dioxide that was stored in them as cellulose then comes out again as carbon dioxide. So they're not removing or contributing extra oxygen, or
trees,
removing or contributing
trees that
extra
grow,
CO2.
like an adult tree will range from about 80 to 500 years.
Yeah, I know.
And in that time, we'll be doing that. What is it? At night, carbon goes out.
Oh, yeah,
in the day, yes. So it's a kind of
it's
exchange.
A
lung.
a growing tree absorbs carbon dioxide, turns it into cellulose, and it also makes oxygen.
Yeah,
right?
Precisely.
So,
which we breathe.
how do you make sure it makes more oxygen? The answer is to make more tree, more cellulose, and so on. And you might ask, well, hang on, where's the carbon dioxide going to come from? Well, actually, if trees take it all out, lots more of it, it'll just come out of the sea.
There's a huge amount of carbon dioxide in the sea,
exactly.
isn't
There's
there?
50 times more carbon dioxide stored in the sea than in the land. So you take the CO2 out and put it into plants that'll make oxygen, and the extra CO2 needed will come out of the sea. So it's important to understand that. But now, does it need a tree to do that? Well, the answer is no. It could be grass, just the same. I'm not saying I'm in favour of
hemp, actually.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not saying I'm in favour of cutting down any of the Amazon, but in terms of oxygen production, it's probably very little different. What I'm concerned about the Amazon is the biosphere and this natural habitat for vast numbers of animals which are being damaged. Now, interesting, who's damaging it? Well, it's people like McDonald's and so on,
Sure.
with their farms down there. And it's cheap, great space, just do it, put the cows on there, inject them with whatever, to fatten them up quicker.
Mm-hmm.
But they all of a sudden they're doing this. Now they become a hate object, and we're told, oh, anything involving farming is bad. So they've switched from being good to somehow bad at the same time as the forest has been destroyed. Whether the powers that be are doing anything to reinstate the forest, I don't know. But it's curious how meat eating has become a bad thing, and then we've got Bill Gates making artificial meat and so on.
Oh, exactly. So playing God.
Yes, playing
Yeah.
God, which is evil. So I would say absolutely, you defend all these forests as natural habitats, but they're only a production source for CO2 so long as the cellulose is captured. Otherwise, they're actually a production source for oxygen if you're capturing the cellulose. Otherwise, they're going to be carbon neutral and oxygen neutral.
Mm-hmm.
Could I ask you, we've only got about 10 minutes left.
Oh, okay.
Time is whipping past. And I wanted to ask about the effect of the sun and solar flares on
absolutely.
so-called climate change.
Absolutely. What I
Because
need
we're
is
seeing more and more extreme weather, and we're being told that it's climate change when it's
yes.
activity of the sun.
Or
as far
someone
as
else will
I'm
tell you it's a chemtrail, Piers, and I said no.
Yeah.
Well, I was talking about this in the car. Look, in 2008, I was at a conference in New York, and I said, look, we're moving towards a solar minimum, a grand solar minimum, and that will mean a signalling of a little ice age type developments, which will be more extreme weathers, more hot and more cold, wilder jet stream, and we said this is going to reach a peak of effect about 2030 to 2035. And this is now happening. This year, no less, well, we've seen more extremes come actually, and it's nothing to do with mankind at all. It's to do with the jet stream and solar activity. It's generally low solar activity and sudden changes of magnetic connectivity between the sun and the earth will cause the jet stream to do these big things. For example, last time we had one of these minima was the Maunder minimum in second half of the 17th century. 1666, for example, London was burnt like a bundle of sticks. Right? Now that summer was plagued just before the fire by the Belgian wind. So as you know, everything bad comes from Belgium, which is a hot wind blowing from the continent. Yeah, I know. It was a true hot wind. Well, Belgium then was a bit more into northern France, so you know,
Sure,
there was this hot east wind, and it was really parching London, right? But it was really hot. Really hot. So the climate changes then would say, my God, this is all, it's because you're these cows shitting, this is what's happening and you're causing this heat, right? However, the following winter, the Thames froze over.
Sure, yes.
Totally.
Yeah.
I mean, it was big freeze. So, you know, that period was vast fluctuations, and on average, it was actually colder, quite a lot colder.
Yeah.
And we're moving into another one of these now. And I can tell you that there's going to be some very big snow and ice storms from Siberia going to hit this country within a week, actually.
Really?
Which is part of our forecast.
Oh, yes, better get a wood delivery in.
That's right. And later on in February we're going to have some, including North Sea storms, very powerful storms hitting, raising the level of the North Sea and potential flooding on the East Coast, like happened in 1953, for example.
So that's fairly imminent.
Yes. But this is, as one of my observers who watches all my forecasts said, Piers, this is LIA conditions, Little Ice Age, which is what I warned about in 2008. So I'm
how
very
long
pleased.
do you predict that this
We did
will
predict
go
the
on
very
for?
cold weather in December 2010 as well, which, as you know,
How long will this little mini ice age go on for, do you think?
well, we're sort of entering it now, so it's going to be a series of colder and colder winters and summers now.
Okay.
More lousy summers. But you see, they're lying about the data anyway. So the data you see is just not true. They're measuring temperatures on the ground, on the tarmac, instead of at 6 feet. So, you know,
Well, yes.
the data giving you is lies.
They've
Is
changed the way they
absolute
measure it,
lies. And they never have a long data set which tells you something. They say, oh, yes, there's a little place in Scotland that blah, blah, blah. Look, they've been going around looking for places where they can see one. Oh, yes, if we put a weather station there, when the wind is in the right direction, you get warming for wind coming down a hill called the phone effect. And then they'll announce that and they'll say this is a world record or something. It's complete lies, fabrication and trickery. If they've got a long data set that says this is the warmest for the last 100 years and they haven't modified the temperatures, right, which they can do and have done, or Stalin used to, or the people under Stalin used to get grants during the war because if it was colder they got the money, so you can't trust their data. Anyway, yes, if you've got a long data set which is reliable, then that's the only way you can judge something. Instead, they never look at a long data set. They say, oh yes, over there, look, hot, hot, hot. And then they claim that's climate change. Well, there's no long data set. It's a nonsense. It's a chosen station.
We talk about solar flares and the changing magnetism coming from the sun.
Yes.
Do you think that has an effect on us as human beings?
Oh, completely.
This change in the
Completely.
magnetic and the frequencies
Completely.
and the Schumann resonance.
There was a whole when are we doing running weather action? Well, we're still running weatheraction.com, but we had the Weather Action Holdings PLC floated on the stock exchange. Yeah, we had all this research from Japan about geomagnetic effects on people's health, solar activity effects on people's health. It's still there. There's a lot of research on it. You could look into it.
What is the general effect on people?
Well, some people just say they're sensitive to it. And presumably they're telling you it makes them feel more agitated and stuff like that.
Tinnitus.
Yes, all sorts of stuff. I mean well, it's a magnetic field here all the time, and it is upsetting you, and it is vibrating. When you have Earth-facing coronal holes, which we can now predict, and we had an earth-facing coronal hole on the 27th of January. We said 25th to 27th we'd have what we called an R5 period of extra storms, potential earthquakes, and that was driven by earth-facing coronal holes. On the 27th there was this massive coronal hole facing the earth. If you go to weatheraction.com, you'll see it on the
Can I just
homepage.
Yeah.
But we predicted that, which is not easy. It's come from a lot of research, but well, now it's easy relatively. And we've got predictions for more of them later in February. So there's a series of these earth-facing coronal holes from different starting points on the sun, which will trigger these big storms I mentioned and this huge low, Siberian low, which is going to come across.
Right. Okay. Can I just say one thing before we wrap up, because we are out of time. But there is another rebel who was a farmer, and he was co-founder of Extinction Rebellion, and his name is Roger Howen.
Yeah.
And he stopped being a farmer because he had successive harvests that failed. And he went on to university to learn about civil unrest and how to develop that.
He should have stayed being a farmer.
Well, he couldn't, because his thing as well, like yourself, is wanting truth. That was the
well, I
big
don't think
push
he wants truth at all. I think he's a tool of the new world tyranny myself.
But in the sense of all of us.
Well, he might have started like that. Okay.
Yes, exactly. So I think these people are being hijacked for the narrative, and so I think.
Fair enough.
I was part of Extinction.
I've met him a few times.
Okay, and that.
I've had debates with him, but
the climate which you share with him.
He talks too much, but he doesn't say much.
Okay.
You see what I mean?
He put it on the agenda. That was the push to get it, because the government was ignoring it completely. I myself couldn't talk to people, friends, family, because it was taboo. Now, one thing, whatever you decry about Extinction Rebellion, it put what we are experiencing as a dialogue on the agenda, and the fact of truth, non-truth, and that discussion. So, would you have any alignment with that and him?
Well, the problem I have with him is that XR and this Just Up Oil put non-truth on the agenda. I'm all for debate being put on the agenda, but they put the opposite to debate on the agenda, and they refuse to discuss. Look, we've challenged, I've been to Royal Society meetings, all of them said, look guys, you don't agree, please come forward with one scientist, one scientific paper using real data which shows carbon dioxide levels control temperature levels, and they never come across. I've had the BBC say, oh yeah, Piers, I can get that, and I had this BBC whatever, and I phoned him up 2 days later, just, have you got that reference? Because I knew he wouldn't be fine. He said, oh Piers, we're not going to talk to anyone who criticises Greta Thunberg. And he put the phone down.
We're going to have to wrap that up now. Would you like to make a final observation, comment?
Well, it could be about the world, or it could be about Green New Deal. I think I'll read this out. Green New Deal is a tax on everything. I mean, I read this last night. I thought, this is all true. I didn't write this, but I could have said it easily. The Green New Deal is a tax on everything we do, make, wear, eat, drink, drive, import, export, and even breathe. The main goal was to eliminate cars, to be replaced with bikes, walking, and light rail trains. The next step will be to put a ban on the sale of new combustion engines by a specific date, and then limiting the number of new vehicles to be sold. Bans on commercial truck shipping will follow. Then they will turn to airplanes, reducing their use. Always higher and higher taxes will be used to get the public to voluntarily reduce their use of such transportation choices. That's how it works, slowly but steadily towards the goal. Single family homes are a target for elimination, to be replaced by high-rise stack and pack apartments in the name of reducing energy use. They will include curfews on carbon heating systems, mandating they be turned off during certain hours. Heating oil devices will become illegal. Gradually, energy use of any kind will be continually reduced. The Green New Deal calls for government control of every single home, office and factory to tear down or retrofit them to comply with massive environmental energy regulations. The beef industry is a direct target for elimination. It will start with mandatory decreases in meat consumption until it disappears from our daily diet. The consumption of dairy will follow. Since the revelation of the Green New Deal, the national debate is now over cattle emissions of methane and the drive to eliminate it from the planet. Controlling what we eat is a major part of the Green New Deal. Zero economic growth, and the answer to that is we have Zexit. Exit that nonsense. The Green New Deal calls for a massive welfare plan where no one earns more than anyone else. Incentive to get ahead is dead. New inventions would disrupt their plan for a well-organised, controlled society. So where will jobs come after we have banned most manufacturing, shut down most stores, stopped single-family home construction, closed the airline industry, and severely regulated farms and entire food industry? This is their answer to the hated free markets and individual choice.
Who's they?
The
Who is
well,
this?
they don't say they there, but I suppose they mean World Economic Forum and mega corporations.
Is that who
No,
wrote this?
no, this is somebody on our side. The Green New Deal will destroy the very concept of our. Well, then it's an American thing about constitutional republic. This is directed against all the Green New Deal and the theory behind it. You see,
Because the Green New Deal was originally something else.
oh yeah,
wasn't it?
no, the New Deal. It wasn't a deal. It was the Roosevelt's New Deal about a new deal.
exactly.
Yeah. And then these people, the mega corporations, put green on the top of it.
Right.
In order to
Well,
control.
yeah.
And I should just say one last thing, if there's a last thing to say, is that the greenhouse theory is fake physics. However, CO2, nitrous oxide, any cow fart, methane, none of them have any effect on the temperature of the planet whatsoever. And I could prove it quite briefly, but we do not have time perhaps.
Thank you very much,
Yes.
Piers, for
Thank
joining
you.
us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Pleasure's
Thank
mine.
you, Natalia. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Bye bye for now.
Bye.
Oh, das war der